Everyone has to breathe, and everyone breathes all day long without even thinking about it. But if we can learn to regulate how we inhale and exhale, we can help control ADHD symptoms. Hi everybody, welcome back to Project Happy Home. For those of you who don't know, I'm Tanya, an MD-JD turned stay-at-home mom of 3 kids ages 7, 4, and 2. My eldest has ADHD, and so I thought it would be good to start this series on parenting a child with ADHD. This is tip number 3 in the series, and I'd like to apologize that it has been a couple weeks since I posted a tip. I've been fairly ill, and you can probably still hear that I'm somewhat congested, but I thought, you know what? If I don't film this tonight, it's just not going to get done, and I really didn't want to let another Friday slip by. So tip number 3 is about breath, and in particular, controlling your breath in a conscious manner to help calm the mind. I find it incredibly helpful for myself as a mother, and so when I started introducing it to my son who has ADHD, I was amazed at the differences it makes in his behavior and his perception of what is actually happening around him. So, research has shown that controlled breathing or consciously regulating your inhalations and exhalations can help integrate the different parts of the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, to not get too specific, is basically parts of your brain and central nervous system that controls things that happen in your body without you consciously thinking about them. One of those things happens to be your respiratory function or your breathing function. The interesting thing about breath, however, unlike your digestive system and things like that, is that it has unconscious control. Like, you couldn't stop breathing if you tried. If you try to hold your breath for a very long time, after a while, your autonomic nervous system kicks in and makes you take a breath so that you don't pass out. But you also have conscious control over your breath. So part of the rationale behind using breath to control your emotions and other parts of your autonomic system that are controlling your fear response or your fight or flight response is that you are sort of putting your breath in charge. You're using your conscious control of your breath to send signals to your brain, to then send signals to the other parts of your brain that might be overreacting, so that you consciously are choosing to calm those other parts of your autonomic nervous system that might be in overdrive. So your autonomic nervous system has 2 main components, one of which is like a stress component and the other is like a recharge or reset component. For your brain to work effectively, both parts have to be able to communicate better and be integrated together. In the brain of a person with ADHD, sometimes that response cycle, that communication between those halves, is not as efficient as we would like it to be. Consciously breathing can really help a person integrate that response cycle, and so the communication within your autonomic nervous system begins to work better, which in turn improves the function of your heart, your lungs, your brain, and just systemically can help calm you down. One of the most popular breath techniques is termed coherent breathing, which I think was originated by Stephen Elliott, who was an author and yoga instructor. And basically the gist of it is to control your breath to about 5 to 6 breaths a minute. So you extend your inhales and exhales so that you are consciously breathing in for, let's say, a count of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then breathing out slowly as well. And there are many different variations on this type of breath control. Yoga instructors often do alternate nostril breathing, so you'll hold one nostril closed, breathe in through that nostril, hold a breath for a certain number of seconds, breathe out through that nostril, and then repeat with the other nostril. Some people do square breathing, which is you breathe in for a count of 3 or 4, you hold it for a count of 3 or 4, you breathe out for a count of 3 or 4, you don't breathe in for a count of 3 or 4, and then you repeat that cycle of 4 steps again. Some people combine alternate nostril breathing with that breathing. I like to keep it pretty simple with my son and just begin our days together, like our actual homeschooling days together, with 3 or 4 minutes of both of us just breathing. And I keep it really simple. I just count in for 5, hold for 3, out for 5. And it's like a game for him, but I like that we mirror the actions together, and together we come to a place of calm. I've talked to him about the different areas of the brain, like the amygdala, the hippocampus, the prefrontal cortex, so he understands what is happening with ADHD on a very basic level and what's happening with a stress response. And I want him to understand that we're breathing so that we can bring more oxygen to our brain, so that we can regulate our body. We're helping ourselves calm down in a conscious way. My favorite thing about coherent breathing or any kind of breath relaxation technique is that you don't need a fancy CD or a podcast or an app or anything. You just need to breathe. We all know how to do this, even the smallest child. Just find a quiet place with your child in the morning or at night or a time when they're already calm. One of the mistakes I think people make with breathing techniques is trying to make the child take deep breaths when they get very, very upset. I've definitely been guilty of this, and I did this for a very long time. And then you end up in a situation where you're aggressively yelling at that child to take deep breaths. I mean it. Take a deep breath to calm down, which I don't think anyone really calms down when someone who's twice their height is telling them sternly to take a deep breath. And I don't think anyone's in the mood to listen to that type of instruction when it's given in a moment of stress. So practice deep breathing with your child and yourself when you are calm together, when you're starting your day, when you're ending your day, perhaps before bedtime. Sit down quietly together. You can sit in lotus pose. Any kind of flexible pose is fun for kids to try. You can lay down together and you can just breathe. Like I said, there's a million different breathing techniques out there. I recommend starting really simple. Tell them, we'll sit down, we can hold hands, we can feel connected, and take a deep breath in. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, and out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll find yourself so much more relaxed for having done it. And that, I think, when you are parenting a child with ADHD, is just as valuable as teaching the child to calm themselves, as teaching you to calm yourself. And like any other good mental practice, the more you practice this when you're calm, the more automatic it'll become as a stress response when you're triggered or when your child is triggered. So practice this with your kid as much as possible, and hopefully it'll be one tool in their arsenal for how to calm themselves as they go through childhood and as they become an adult. I hope this tip is helpful. If you guys have any questions, please list them in the comments down below. I would love to share more about what I've learned about breath control. I truly think it's one of the most effective and simplest tools we can use to calm ourselves and our kids as we go on this ADHD journey. And honestly, I think it would be helpful to anyone, regardless of whether they have ADHD or not. I forgot to mention at the beginning of my video that I'm doing this Parenting a Child with ADHD series in collaboration with my friend Michelle at A Common Life, who is doing a series on parenting a child with SPD or sensory processing disorder. Michelle and I have found that a lot of these same issues that a parent with an ADHD child encounters is encountered by a parent with SPD. And so I'm sure if you head over to Michelle's channel, there'll be a lot of tips and helpful tricks and things that you can learn from her as well. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. As always, I wish you a wonderful day.